today I'm going to be talking to you about The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. So I've been reading The Atlas 6 for a few days now, and I wasn't sure whether to do a vlog on it or not. I didn't know much about it going into it, apart from the fact that it was super hyped. It was originally published, self-published, and the author got popular on TikTok, I think. So other than that, going into it, I didn't know anything about the plot. I just knew that obviously there were 7,000 special editions and everybody's going on about it. So I decided not to do vlog updates because I didn't know if I'd have a lot to say about it. And now I'm 4 days in and I have a lot to say about it. And so I thought I would start a vlog with you, and then as I read 10% a day for the next few days, I'll update you going forward, and we will see how I end up feeling about it. Because at the moment, I don't get the hype on this one at all. I don't understand why everybody is loving it so much, because it genuinely feels like Olivia Blake wrote this and then decided to right click on the words and go on to synonyms and just change every word for the most superfluous choice that she physically could have chosen. Everything is so overly wordy. There are sentences that are just absolutely jam-packed with adjective after adjective, and none of them really make sense together. So that keeps throwing me. 6 viewpoints in a 400-page book is too many, so that is frustrating me as well, especially because this is going to be a controversial opinion. Basically all of the viewpoints sound the same. I mean, it's not first person when it's switching, so I guess you could argue that it's like a narrator, so that would sound the same. But I keep getting confused between Callum and Tristan because it seems like they have very similar motivations, very similar people. They're kind of becoming friends. Parisa I find really interesting, but we're barely getting any of her viewpoint. The same with Rena, barely getting any of her viewpoint. There's a lot of focus on Libby and Nico, and as much as I like the kind of high school enemies becoming kind of semi-comrades, I find both of them painfully boring. Nico's life outside of the Alexandria Society is far more interesting. So Nico's interactions with Gideon really interest me. Nico's interactions with Max interest me, who are two of his friends. I should have mentioned at the beginning of this vlog that it is going to be spoilery. So if you haven't started reading this or read this yet, then you probably want to click away because I'm going to get spoilery. But the interactions with them interest me a lot more, and I would be interested in reading Nico's story before this happens. But in all honesty, I'm nearly halfway through and fuck all has happened. I don't just say that to say that, I mean it. There was some kind of initiation night called the installation, and that was semi-tense, but it felt like it was organised, so there wasn't really that much drama because it was oh, okay, this is probably one of those hazing rituals. So I didn't feel like I had any reason to care. Libya's talked to her boyfriend on the phone a lot, but I don't really care. It seems pretty obvious to me that Libby and Nico are going to end up boning. I don't know if that's because their relationship kind of reminds me of the main couple in Today, Tonight, Tomorrow by Rachel and Solomon, because that is also high school enemies and they end up becoming lovers, and that one's a super sweet story. So I don't know if it's because it's kind of reminiscent of that I'm thinking that Nico and Libby are probably going to get together. But it means I already don't like her because I have a feeling she's going to cheat on Ezra, and I don't like that because he shares a name with my son. So I have to like Ezra, even if he's really boring and they just talk on the phone a lot. There's also a lot of telling not showing, and it's Libby will be on the phone to Ezra thinking about a conversation that she's had with Nico about something that's happened weeks ago, but we could have just seen the events in the first place. So it's her and Nico have made a wormhole, and Nico's been using this wormhole to go and get snacks from the kitchen. That sounds like that's quite a lot of action. That sounds like that's actually something really interesting. Instead we're just getting Libby talking to Nico about the interesting thing that has happened, but actually only thinking about the conversation with Nico because she's still currently on the phone to her boyfriend, who she can tell nothing because it's all secret society and they are sworn to secrecy. So we're having a conversation about nothing effectively for basically a whole chapter. So that annoyed me. The chronology is just whack. It's jumping, like there are such big time jumps and we're missing all of the interesting stuff, and then we're just like back into what feels like teen drama, even though these are grown-up characters. Like they all feel so young. Like Parissa's boning the teacher guy from the previous generation of scholars, and that's very like teen drama. I know she's older than a teen. I think she's in her 20s, but she doesn't read that way. They all read very young. So I can see why people are complaining that this was the Fairy Loot adult choice, because it doesn't feel adult at all. Apart from the fact that the language feels like it's trying to be literary fiction and instead just sounding like word soup. So, all in all, 40% in, and I don't think I like it. But now I'm doing a vlog on it, so I have more motivation to actually read it because I can just bitch about it to you guys. So let's have some fun. Let's see if it gets better. Let's see if this deserves the hype and the many, many special editions. Because at the moment I'm feeling like it's probably going to be like a 3. And I'm interested enough to carry on with the sequel because I feel like that'll be when it really gets into its stride. But I don't understand how this is the edited version. Like, this has been published, self-published, and then republished, like repackaged. We've got illustrations in it, and it's been edited. Some key scenes have been added. But I can't understand how this has actually been edited because it still reads very self-pubbed. Which is interesting, and also my poor foiling is rubbing off because of how I'm holding the book. So, all in all, not having a great experience with this one so far, but we will see how I'm feeling in my next update. So I've just finished filming my April reading update, and so I thought I'd do a quick check-in on Alyce 6. There's been a threesome, which I did not see coming, and like, it was Libby, Tristan and Parissa. So there's me like, oh, Libby's definitely going to cheat on Ezra. So not only does Libby cheat on Ezra, but she cheats on Ezra with 2 people, and neither of the one that I thought she was going to cheat on him with. So like, dang. There's been some wacky, zacky kind of psychological shit going on. So Callum got Parissa to jump off a roof, and then Parissa was like, everybody, wake up, because she'd somehow transported them inside Nico's head. So, like, none of it makes sense, but it is definitely more compelling now. I'm enjoying it a lot more than I was when I was reading it yesterday. Nico nearly killed himself because he was repairing some magical ward things. And people from the forum have come around and they're like, hey, sup, you know, the society is like really elitist. How about you like overthrow it with us? And they're all like, no, we don't think so. But I've got a feeling that's probably what's going to end up happening, because they all seem pretty tempted by that idea. What else has happened? That's pretty much it. But, like, yeah. Who would have expected a threesome? Didn't see that coming. Especially because Parissa's still boning Dalton, so Parissa's just boning everybody. But she's basically said, like, she uses sex to manipulate people easier, because when you have sex with somebody, their, like, mind opens up to you, so she can see, like, everything that they are. And she's like, I have fun having sex, and it makes my life easier. So, like, why not sleep with everybody that I want to get into the head of? So I can see her motivations. I can kind of get where she's coming from. It's not what I was expecting, but I'm liking the fact that we've got a character who is so different from all of the others, because, like, Libby and Nico are very similar, and Tristan's a bit, and I really don't like Callum, so, like, it's good that I've got a character who's, like, a bit of an anti-hero, but I like her, so that's something at least. We've finished our reading for today, so we'll pick this up again tomorrow, hopefully, and I'll let you know if there's any more threesomes. Hello, it is now the end of the day on Saturday, and we are doing another update on the Alyce 6. I haven't updated for a couple of days because I haven't really had much to say about it. The section that we read on Thursday was like, oh yeah, actually, it's been a whole year since the book started now, and that gave me pause because they've mentioned Christmas, but none of the other holidays have been mentioned, and seeing as we've got quite a diverse cast of characters, it would have been interesting if there had been some exploration of different holidays that they may have celebrated, because just having Christmas as the one focal point seems a bit bland. Also, there's not really any changing of the seasons. It's just kind of like, oh, we're in Britain. It's very grey. It's very gloomy. It's very grey all the time. That just seems a bit too easy. So it would have been nicer if we'd had some kind of crafting that made it feel like it had been a year, because it doesn't feel like it's been a year. It feels like it's been a couple months, like we're just entering the end of the first term. It doesn't really genuinely feel like it's been a year. Sean is now interrupting me, which is why I never film with him in the room anymore.
Like what you say, she has teleporters to other places around the world, and they all are described basically the same sort of way, and they all feel the exact same. They all feel like they're in England and they're gloomy.
Yeah, I kind of think it all feels like America to me.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like England at all. Rena, when she met Rena, she was in Korea, I believe. Or Tokyo? I can't remember where Rena is at the beginning. But that, again, felt very one-dimensional. It felt very similar to the rest of the settings in the book. There's nothing to make any of this actually stand out that much.
Paris? I was confused because I thought it was Britain, and then it was like, oh, Paris, like, wait, what?
Was Parisa in Paris?
She talked
Possibly.
about it. She talks about it, but it's like, that's just describing...
I can't remember. There's nothing that stands out that prominently in my mind because it is very forgettable. There was an interesting section where they all decided that Tristan was going to kill Callum, and then Tristan was like about to kill Callum, and then Callum was like, I know you're going to kill me, and then there was a scream when the section ended, so it sounded as though Callum had killed Tristan, which wouldn't have even surprised me, to be honest, because then it's kind of mirroring what Dalton said happened in his year at the society, because the guy wanted to kill him, so he killed him in return. But it turns out it was actually Libby screaming, because she has now been somehow transported through time, so somebody has kidnapped her and hidden her. My theory is that it's Ezra, because apparently she had a scream of betrayal, and it sounded like it was somebody she knew, and seeing as the only other person that she seems to know in this entire world is him, it's either going to be him or it's going to be Mark, the werewolf who lives with Nico, because I don't know why we would get introduced to Gideon and Mark and then not
Mark
really... Yeah. Right, Sean's forgotten Mark's even existed. Gideon is mentioned all the time. Mark is mentioned occasionally, but considering we got introduced to him quite early on, it would be interesting if he then became more of a focal character. But I think it's probably going to be Ezra, because we did get a really weird, like, an interlude section when it's just Ezra talking to Alyce, and I didn't really understand why. Sean thinks he was, like, interviewing him and considering making him part of the society, but I don't think Ezra's that interesting. Sorry, Ezra. I love you.
I thought Alyce was talking to Gideon.
No, it was Ezra. It was Libby's ex. That was who he was talking to in that weird interlude section.
It was very strange.
Yeah, it just came out of nowhere, and it was just mostly like Ezra's like monologuing, and then it's just like silence. Ezra monologues a bit more, silence. Ezra monologues a bit more, and then it's like Alyce says one line, and it was kind of like, why the fuck is Alyce talking to Ezra? But then I don't really care, if I'm honest. It's getting a bit more interesting, because I was there panicking trying to find Libby, but this is the kind of time I want us to jump to Libby's perspective, because it would be interesting to see where the hell she is and what she's going through, rather than just hearing all of them bitching about the fact that they can't find her, because it's very repetitive. Like, Tristan's like, where's Libby? I know she's not dead, and Nico's like, I refuse to believe that Libby is dead, and I bet we're about to jump onto somebody else's perspective, and they're going to be like, I don't think that Libby's actually dead. So, very repetitive still, not really inspiring me. Still interested in carrying on because it's not that bad, but my friend who is reading this book at the same time as us has said that it is the worst book that they have ever read, which is a lofty claim, because it's not really that bad. I'm ripping it apart because of the fact that it's so overhyped and so lauded, but in the grand scheme of things, it's just not great. Like, there's a lot of issues with it. I don't hate it, but it's not good. Sean has his hand up again. Would you like to contribute?
She has somehow made it. So, like, the action at the very early part of the book has basically removed all dramatic tension.
Yeah.
Like, they're gonna...
I can't remember any of their names, don't try.
Gonna stab Callum?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, yeah, like, murder's really bad, but, like, I don't feel anything for any of these characters. And, like, there's not even, like, oh, no, who's gonna die? Who's gonna die? Because I kept asking Alyce while reading, like, who do you think's gonna die? Like, not like who is going to die, but like which character do we think is going to be killed? Because there's no tension, there's no like fear for any characters' lives. Like, oh look, they're all super duper powerful.
The thing that interests me is that they're all terrible people apart from Rena. So I wouldn't be surprised if Rena ended up dying just because she's the only one that's not really a terrible person. But then that's because we're getting less of her viewpoint and she's not really saying all that much.
I think Rena's something horrible.
Oh.
That's why she doesn't do magic or.
No, she can't do magic. Like, she has magic and her magic amplifies other people, but she can't use it herself because she can't amplify herself because she has nothing to amplify.
Yeah, but she like is completely cut herself off from her family because I wonder if she amplified one of her family members and something horrendous happened.
Possibly. It could be interesting to get more from her. But that's what I mean. Like, Rena's the most likeable character because we haven't heard anything from her. Libby is not great. Parisa is not great. Callum is an absolutely heinous beast. Tristan is very meh, and Nico's a bit of an anti-hero as well. So if you like morally grey characters and you like kind of anti-heroes, then this is going to be the book for you.
They're not even good
But
anti-heroes.
they're all just kind of trash, if I'm honest.
They
Trash.
only have like one. They're like, not
One defining characteristic.
They're like 1.1D.
Yeah, 1.1 dimension. Yeah, sounds about right. So we're going to try and finish the chapter. We've got one more chapter that we need to read today, and then we'll be finishing it tomorrow, and then we'll do a bit of a full review for you. But, yeah. Still not loving it. Still, like, not hating it, but just definitely not what I was expecting. I don't know why this has got as much hype as it has. The fact that it's going to be a trilogy terrifies me, because basically nothing's happened in the first one. I can't see how things will be satisfying in the later two, because it'll either all be rushed in at once or there will still be basically nothing happening. Yeah, we'll see how the last section goes, because we are very close to the end here. So I finished the Atlas 6 last night, and I thought that it would be good to sit down and do a little review for you. And so I'm here to sum up what you've seen so far, and I'm also here to give you some thoughts on the last couple of chapters. Because quite a lot happens in the last couple of chapters, which is interesting. But the problem is that it's all very predictable stuff, and I saw it coming from a mile away. So I think the last time I updated you, I was pretty sure that Ezra was going to have been the one that kidnapped Libby, which I was right about. And it turns out that Ezra is actually somebody who can walk through time. So he can... Earlier in the book, Libby and Nico are opening wormholes from location to location. Ezra can open wormholes from one time to another. So he was actually in Atlas's year at the Society, and he has been jumping through time to get to this group of 6, when they'll be able to find the perfect selection of 6 people that can like make a new universe. I think it sounds like they're pretty much done with the fact that the environment is dying and that nobody really cares about the planet, so they're like, let's just fob this planet off and just make ourselves a new one. Which is not what I was expecting, and it does come out of nowhere, but the way that it goes about is just so cliched, because it means that everything makes sense, but because the foreshadowing, like the conversation between Atlas and Ezra, actually happened back when they were both at the Society, but it makes it seem as though it's chronologically happening now. And that randomly being shoehorned in just doesn't make any sense. It throws your enjoyment of the story because there's no reason for it to go in there. And I actually think I would have found it more impactful if that interlude section hadn't been featured, or if that had come earlier. But it's so close to everything being revealed that it makes it feel a little cheesy. I'm impressed by how unlikable all of these characters are. I'm impressed by the fact that Ezra's like, yeah, no, I don't care about the fact that Libby cheated on me because I haven't told her that I can walk through time. Because those two things are, like, comparable. Having a secret that you literally can't tell anybody or you might get hunted to death to be, like, used for your powers, that's not the same as, like, yes, I decided to have a threesome because I just felt like it. So that was a bit stupid. In all honesty, I don't get the hype at all. It's an interesting concept, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the TV adaptation, but I just don't think it works as a book. The time jumps are too intense. It's too short. If this was closer to 500 pages and things could have been fleshed out a bit more, I would have enjoyed it more. But instead it feels like, okay, so we've got these people who are being initiated into this society. They have to kill one of them to be able to become members of this society, to go through this initiation. So we know that there's going to be a death. But then we discover that actually Ezra just stepped through time and didn't die, but they all thought that he was dead. So that just says to me that the whole idea of the sacrifices is just completely null and void. Because if they've had like 1 year where nobody was sacrificed and they didn't notice a particular dip in the power, they didn't notice that the library wasn't as strong as it was previously, then surely that means that they already have enough magic from all of the previous sacrifices and they don't need any more. And now we're just doing it again. So whoever got sacrificed in Paul Dalton's year just died for basically nothing, because Ezra's just casually walking through time still, hasn't given up any of his magic. And now he's kidnapped Libby and taken her out of time, but they're like, yeah, we're just going to initiate the rest of you. You don't have to worry about it. I hoped it was going to be like, okay, well, Libby's been kidnapped and the 5 of you think that you're safe, but you are not. 1 of you still has to die, so there will just be 4 of you left. That would have been more interesting to me. Instead it's like, oh yeah, no, you get a free pass. So this really high stakes drama that you introduced at the beginning of the book, they're like, 1 of them's going to die, if only 5 will survive. No, that's bullshit. 1 of them's just been kidnapped and shoved in a different time period. It will be interesting later on in the series, because I feel as though with a premise like that, you can't not end up killing off one of the main characters. It's just too safe, it's too easy, it is pleasing the audience way too much. I want to be challenged. I want to be distraught. I want emotional destruction. I wanted one of these characters to die, and I wanted to care for them all so much that I wouldn't have mourned that. But I ended up getting to the end of a book that, like, I like Nico. I wouldn't want Nico to die. But the rest of them, I just don't care about at all. And there's no motivation for me to start caring about them. Libby, terrible person. Tristan, he's, like, interesting. He's got hidden depths, but I don't like him. Callum is just a monster. Paris's just has interesting motivations, but again, I don't like her. And Rena is just the most minor background character, and I think I'm hoping that she will become more of a focal point in the future, because she's got so much potential, but she hasn't been used at all in this book. She's basically just done some fighting training with Nico and then glared at Parisa a lot. Like, I know that she's like the quiet character, but you can still have depth with the character who is quiet. You don't have to just be like, oh, Rena didn't say anything because she's quiet. It just feels like a bit of a caricature. It feels a bit too easy again. It is, I think, a debut, or at least it's her traditionally published debut. I believe Olivia Blake was self-publishing books before this, so it's not her actual debut. But in all honesty, I think that the traditional publishers should have worked it a bit more. I didn't read the original, but there's still a lot of potential for editing in here. It could have easily dropped from a trilogy down to a duology and done like 2 chunkier books so that they felt as though they were more fleshed out. Or hell, keep it as a trilogy but actually have them as like full-length adult fantasy novels, because this is the length of a YA book. The characters feel YA. Yes, they're doing slightly older things, but there's nothing in this apart from like the threesome. There isn't. But then I guess like A Kotal was originally published as YA, and that has more graphic sex than the threesome in here. It's very much fade to black. This could have easily been published as YA, and I don't know why it wasn't. I think it might have been more interesting if it had been published as YA, because then the characters wouldn't feel young. They would be like the right age, so it would be more interesting. But instead they're meant to be older, they're meant to be a bit more mature, and they're still making a lot of very childish decisions. Very self-interested, very self-absorbed, and I just don't like that. I can see why people are complaining about Fairy Loot choosing this now, because when this got chosen as the Fairy Loot adult book, people were saying, but it's a YA book, and I was like, come on, it's being published as adult, you can't just automatically write it off because it's got younger characters. But yeah, you totally can. This totally feels YA, apart from the fact it's like a YA author decided to swallow a thesaurus and just slam as many big complicated words and really haughty-taughty sentence structures and flowing, let me put like 3 different clauses in one sentence and make it hard to understand what's actually being said. It's that kind of level. I can see why people like it, because if you're new to adult fantasy, then it's not too challenging. It's not an epic fantasy on the scale of like Robert Jordan, George R.R. Martin. It's not introducing you to a whole new world, a huge cast of characters. It's quite a small cast of characters. It's a very intimate setting. Like, we are at the Alexandria Society, and we're there for most of the time. We spend a little bit of time in New York, a little bit of time when we're meeting the others, but like, first and foremost, it's just at the place where they're training, so it's very small. And so I can see why people are attracted to that aspect, but I'm I'm more in like a epic fantasy sort of mood recently, so that's my problem. I just wanted something more from this. I will be carrying on with the series, that's for sure. Because I am interested in seeing what happens later on, because I'm wondering if, because this one was self-published and then republished, like repackaged, whether a lot of those self-published things would have been carried over, and whether the sequel will be a bit tauter, a bit tighter, a bit neater, because it will have had the full treatment, the full publishing team behind it from the beginning. I'm hoping that that might be all it needs, and that they're trying to keep the magic alive for the people who have already read the self-published version. Keep it close enough that they're not alienated by it and they can still carry on with the series if they don't want to reread the first book. But I'm hoping that we will see a dramatic change in tone, at least, later in the series. But I will let you know, because the second book is actually being published in October, so it's quite soon. I think it's only about 6 months away now. And I'm hoping to get my hands on that as soon as it comes out, so that I can still remember what's going on in this one. And then I will let you know how I'm feeling. I just hope we get the art in the second book as well, because the art is really gorgeous. I really like the fact that we've got the character art. I wish that they were labelled, because a few of the characters are described quite similarly. So just having these random pictures of people and not knowing who is who was a bit of a throw. But it's okay. Like, that's my fault for not being able to use my brain login very well on things like fan art, because I always struggle with that, even if it's characters I'm really familiar with. So that is it for this Atlas 6 reading vlog. Let me know if you agree with my thoughts, if you disagree with my thoughts. Like, if you loved this, then let me know why, and maybe I'll go into the sequel with a bit more of an open mind, and I will see whether there's just something that didn't click for me that other people really love. If you hated it, then let me know why. Is it similar reasons for me? Is it like the pacing, the editing? Is it the characters? Yeah, let's just have a discussion about this one. If you like this video, please give it a like, and if you'd like to subscribe, we would be super duper grateful. We post new videos every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday, so I'll see you in a couple of days with another video. Bye! So I'm here to sum up what you've seen so far, and also hiccup my head off, apparently. So I'm here to